I want to encourage you to take care of yourself. And I want to also receive some care from you. Right. And you don't want me to lose myself in trying to care for you. You would then also want me to keep hold of myself and hold my foundation and my strength, not be only in that side and selfish, as you say, but use that to also be able to care for others. I understand sometimes people are imbalanced. They're either losing themselves in the process of overgiving or they're overtaking and they're abandoning others in the process of maybe even their self-care or something, or self-importance. But we can still, from our side, care for ourselves, care for others, and learn how to set those boundaries, which a lot of the work I do is around what I call discernment mappings.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we explore bold ideas to drive positive change for people, community, and business. And today's guest is transformational. She's wise, relational, clarity-driven, and spiritually grounded. Amara Samata is a global facilitator, communication strategist, founder of Inner Guidance Institute. Her frameworks empower conscious leaders, couples, and change makers to cultivate self-awareness, resolve conflict, and lead from clarity and connection. And the key goal of our discussion is exploring inner sustainability, relational mastery for meaningful change, where having that inner clarity gives conscious leadership and relational intelligence for a sustainable world. Amara, thank you so much for joining. Your work weaves ancient wisdom with modern psychology. What drew you to this path of deep inner guidance and communication transformation?
What drew me to this work? Well, it's been a lifetime pursuit for me, you could say. I mean, I was always very interested in what is it that makes the world go around? What is it that makes people tick? What is, where's all this coming from? I was sort of born with those deep existential questions, sort of always looking at the bigger picture. It's kind of a part of who I am. Maybe it has to do with opposite parents or something. My father was a Southern Baptist preacher, and my mother was a nurse and much more on the kind of scientific side. And so I had a lot of, just kind of big ideas floating around. And I really questioned everything. So that, that led me into my life and really wanting to sort of unpack for myself what it means to live in integrity. How do you master a life? What does that look like? What's the power of human life? And then I sort of stumbled into the work I was doing by default from experiences that I had, which we can talk about more if that's interesting, and led me to the work that I'm doing today, which is being able to work as really like a transformational consultant. I do guidance, I do coaching, I do communication training and strategy work there. Yeah, and how it all kind of ties together into the big picture of living an integral, masterful life in all areas of your life.
Tell us about the inner guidance method. How does it help people accelerate clarity and move through stagnant?
Yeah. So as we were saying, everything starts with us. Here we are, whether you're in your leadership or your business or your work or your mission. And so I'm really interested in relationship to self, relationship to others, and then relationship to life itself. You can call that nature or the environment or, kind of the bigger picture of life. So the inner guidance method is about getting in touch with your actual inner guidance, that part of you that has clarity about the decisions that you're making and is not in conflict. And most of the time we are in conflict, should I or shouldn't I? And when we have that kind of inner confusion or turmoil, it's very hard to take decisive action. And if you're interested in living in integrity, you want to be clear so that you can make decisions, so you can be integral and you can do what you want to accomplish. So this method, the inner guidance method, is a very specific framework that I walk people through to answer for themselves their own truth. And as long as they're willing to be honest with themselves, they will step themselves into the aha moment and realize what they need to do.
Yeah, that's quite insightful. So, why is internal alignment foundational for that sustainable external transformation?
Why is the what alignment?
Alignment internally, inside.
Internal, yeah.
To be aligned inside then helps with transforming externally.
Because you are the decision maker in your life. So when you have internal alignment, your external actions are going to follow suit, right? They're going to be congruent with your belief systems, with your inner knowing. and your ideas. So you got to get good with what's going on inside and have a way to access that. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be able to have a process in which you can think for yourself and think with yourself to be in alignment for the actions that you want to take.
In a life where most people are so busy, with different activities, whether it's busy because of work, busy because of study, busy because of business, or just busy on social media or other, you know, extracurricular
Uh-huh.
activities. What do you see to be the key challenges that people face that stops them from paying attention to that inner voice or the inner issues that they need the clarity with?
Sure. Do you want, yeah, how deep do you want to go? But
Yeah, please throw right in.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, it has a lot of it has to do with your relationship to fear. So, when I say fear, often our fear keeps us from facing the things we need to face. So, busyness can be a way that we're avoiding, also addressing some things, of course, but there's other things that are not being addressed. What I've seen that people really change their lives and really get aligned and integral and start living what we call a fulfilling life because it is aligned and you really are living on point with your purpose, right? It's what I call the raw mindset. So you are ready, able, and willing to break through whatever distractions are happening for you and to really live so that your actions are aligned with your purpose. So ready means you're ready to take action now. You're ready to prioritize the right things in that so-called busyness or the aligned things and to kind of weed out the things that are not aligned. Right. So you're ready. That means now, not later. You're able to some degree, you're able to show up for yourself. You're able to take decisions. You're able to take small steps. And then you're willing to keep going. And especially when it's tough or hard and the distractions are coming in or that yeah, but thinking, we really have to clear up that yeah, but, argument that's going on inside. So what is it that gets people ready, able, and willing to move forward? Well, there's two driving forces, inspiration and desperation. Both of those will push you forward. Right. I'm a fan of inspiration. If you can use it, definitely optimize your inspiration. But when things get desperate, people take action and they learn they have to find another way. So that's great because it means we have a fail-safe inside of us that drives us to our greater purpose. We're not, robots, not yet. So we can still make decisions to evolve.
That's powerful with the inspiration and desperation. Is it safe to assume that it's better to have the inspiration and not desperation? And perhaps I'll give you what I'm thinking about, where
Yeah.
there's a former work colleague who mentioned that she was always able and willing to go on a gym or diet, to lose weight because of, she wasn't quite comfortable with her weight, but she didn't do it until the desperation kicked in. So that's what I'm thinking about to ask, is it better to go towards inspiration than desperation?
Well, what do you think? What can you imagine? Do we want to wait until we're sick or, we're in pain or we just can't take it anymore? I mean, of course, even in my own life, that's kind of when I really stepped into my bigger transformation was when I was in a, kind of a desperate, my life was falling apart place. And that had to do with the divorce that I went through. And that was something I did not want to have happen in my life. So it was real a breakdown of my ego, my character, my self-identity, and I had to face a certain reality at the time and to move through that. And that's when I really decided to understand myself better so that I could have healthier relationships to myself and to others. And it just really unpacked my potential and my growth. But it was a desperate moment, for sure. Now I follow inspiration. Now I know that when I have that little excitement about something, or I wonder what that could be about, or that sounds interesting, now I know to prioritize it and not wait to not push it aside.
Yeah, that's good. So you mentioned about knowing yourself. There are some school of thoughts that would encourage that you need to know yourself, or even
Mhm.
love yourself, in order to be able to love others. And then there are some who would say, oh, loving yourself is a bit self-centered.
Oh,
How
right.
how do you help give clarity around those school of thought of you need
Perfect.
to know yourself because my favorite book says love your neighbor as yourself. So that means that
Yes.
you need to love yourself so that you can love your neighbor and not the other way around. Hopefully that gives a context of what the question is around navigating that knowing and loving
Yeah,
yourself.
and this is often a long-standing question with people. If you just love your neighbors, you'll be okay. If you just take care of yourself, you'll be okay. Which one is it? So I believe in what I call relationship squared, which means there's four boxes to tick in a healthy relationship with any others, your neighbor, your partner, whatever. Ideally, so the ideal is take care of myself and I also care about you. And then you care about yourself, you take care of yourself, and then you also care about me. And when you have both of those and you build trust around that, then you have a deeply empowered relationship or team or whoever. And we say, I have to care about how you take care of yourself. I want to encourage you to take care of yourself. And I want to also receive some care from you. Right. And you don't want me to lose myself in trying to care for you. You would then also want me to keep hold of myself and hold my foundation and my strength, not be only in that side and selfish, as you say, but use that to also be able to care for others. I understand sometimes people are imbalanced. They're either losing themselves in the process of overgiving or they're overtaking and they're abandoning others in the process of their, maybe even their self-care or something, or self-importance, but we can still from our side care for ourselves, care for others, and learn how to set those boundaries, which a lot of the work I do is around what I call discernment mapping. So is it a healthy boundary or are you just stonewalling someone and shutting down? Is this a healthy engagement that you're involved in, or is this something unhealthy that you're getting wrapped up in? So this is the gas and the brakes of your life, and you have to have a healthy relationship to that and know what unhealthy is. We often say, everyone's talking about healthy boundaries, but nobody wants to be rejected. And yet we have to be able to receive healthy rejection and really actually appreciate it for what it is and where it directs us. And we should be able to give it as well. And it should be something that's respected. But there's a lot of entanglement with unhealthy boundaries being set or not being set. And so we have to have discernment, which in my book means healthy judgment, not judgy judgment, but the healthy judgment, that healthy ability to assess for yourself what's right for you and what's right for how you want to show up in the world. We need to
Yeah, that's
definitely
good.
bring that back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's okay to assume that most people would prefer yes, but I've noticed that in some situations, whether it's a boardroom or a leadership team, where I've presented things where I found out the quicker I can get a no, it helps me to get towards the next yes. And so I'm sharing how I think I find it empowering being comfortable with the no because now I know that I would rather hear the no next month than wait 9 months, to hear the no because hear the no next month means I can go on to the one that will get a yes, if that makes sense. So I'm curious to
Yeah.
know, yeah, to go around that. So what is above the line relating and
Yep.
how
So
can it shift how we interact in leadership teams or partnerships?
yeah, so that's my Atler work or above the line relating is about that discernment, understanding what is above the line or healthy behavior and what is not. So if you look at relationship squared and you say, how's my team doing? Are they okay within themselves? And are they giving to the mission, the company, the team, whatever? Are they giving and able to give? Is that in balance or is it not? Am I taking care of myself and I able to give? And then, of course, that's just a principle. So then, how do we actually live that? That's where we get a lot into the communication work and bringing a culture of healthy communication, and we implement that into our families, into our companies. And you really have to be a self-aware family or self-aware company, self-aware couple who's working on that in order to decide that you don't want a toxic relationship or a toxic environment. You want a healthy one. So the Adler work shows you exactly how to build that in your in your work.
Humanity, up until the last maybe 100 or 50 years, have survived based on scarcity of information or books. You have to go to a library to get information. Now there's abundance of information around communication. What are the signs someone is communicating from below the line and how they can reset in the moment?
Yeah, so a lot of communication has to do with, well, we're just information sharing. You're either asking for information or you're giving information. All conversations can boil down to that. So I think you have to really look at what's your objective. So if your objective is to have a healthy work environment and you name what that is, you decide that that's a place where people feel free to be honest, even if it's, tough truths to hear, so that we can build real, programs, real services, real products that are actually, that we're honest about, that are doing what we say we want them to do. So I think that's kind of the first starting point for me. Do you actually want an integral experience in your business, in your work, in your creation, or do you just want to make money at any cost? So obviously those are not my my clientele. We're talking about people that genuinely want to have a masterful experience and they want to deliver something good in their life. So once we understand the objective, then it's about getting people to feel safe to ask the right questions, the aligned questions, and to give and feel safe to give the answers. So it's a lot about structuring when does the question come, and then when you get an answer, instead of jumping to conclusions, and you're thinking, and you learn how to lean in instead of just jump to assumptions and saying, okay, seems like this is happening. Can you tell me about that? And really getting to the heart of a negotiation in a really healthy way. So I have 6 steps to negotiating anything. It's been used for everything from $1 million deals to, people getting promotions, all kinds of things in business and life, using it in marriages and with your kids. And it invites non-manipulative, healthy, genuine answers where a person is not under duress and they're not afraid to find out what's truly possible together. So once you have that objective, you can work with this framework and then you start to build really aligned things, beautiful things. So there's no room for things that are unhealthy or mixed, not a good fit. All of that would be weeded out, and you have really incredible aligned teams who are on the same page and working together.
That's good. I'm curious to know, would you be able to summarize what those 6 steps are?
Sure, sure, I can. And the thing about the steps, and we teach them, and I will show you something that you can do when you're stuck in your life and you want to know, how do I get out of this? I'm confused. Should I or shouldn't I? I want to, but I don't. I do have a 4-part success formula that you can start to untangle things, quickly. Well, when it comes to healthy communication, I'll tell you the framework, and then I'll tell you that it's when we go through this training, it's really a retraining in the way you view life. It really does shift your whole, what we call in Buddhism, your worldview, because often we're thinking in different ways in which we are knowing, we're unknowingly kind of manipulating or controlling things. So this really strips that away. But we start with acknowledgement. There's something that needs to be acknowledged, and we find that healthy acknowledgement. And it's like we're opening up the defense patterns of the person we're talking to. And there's like kind of 6 doors that you have to go through to get someone to feel safe to be honest with you. Acknowledgement. The second step is radical self-ownership of the experience that you're having. The third is vulnerability, and I know that's a very confused topic, so I can give you later my definition of vulnerability. The fourth one is you share your need or your want or your desire. And what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is you ask a very specific question. And then the sixth one is you do the handover and you end with an open-ended question to find out what the person feels about what you've just shared with them. So this is, most negotiations are kind of like, I'll withhold my cards and you withhold yours. And we kind of, step by step see what's possible. This is very different. This is where you stand up and say, here's what I am, here's what I see, here's what I appreciate, here's what I believe in. Here's what I need. Here's what I'm asking for. What do you think? And we just get straight to where are we at? And then, so it cuts through a lot of wasted time and it brings you into, just resolution. So we're seeking above the line resolution. You'll feel good about the outcome, whether you end up being together or not, whether something goes through or not, because you'll know it was the right thing.
Oh, it's good. Getting that transparency of what people want, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
it wastes a lot of time
Yeah.
because in some business sectors or sales, they tend to talk about start with what the other person wants without really saying what you really, really want. So that transparency, no doubt, helps
Yeah.
a
So
lot.
this flips things around, and it's worked in sales. People's sales go up with this work, not down, because it builds trust. It
Yeah.
builds trust, and people buy when, and they engage in things that they trust. So instead of pressuring people into something, even if it might be good for them, but, high pressure sales, and you kind of use people's objections against them, and, to finally walk them into something. And it doesn't always leave the best feeling. And you kind of end up with conveyor belt. You have to just keep going to new audiences and new leads because you're not really nurturing the people you're with. So this converts in a really great way because you're building trust with your customers. And people
Yeah.
who are truly misaligned, you'll see it right away. And if somebody's really misaligned, they're going to cause you a lot of trouble, especially when you line up with them. I mean, even if you just take their money and run, that's not going to lead to a long sustainable. That's not going to be a sustainable business, right?
No, no. No, you're right. If you can get clients or customers who are really aligned, engaged with what you've sold them. Because yeah, I've bought things where I've actually bought it, but I've walked away and I think, how did I buy this? Clearly that kind of feeling, there's no way I would recommend that business to a friend.
Yeah, and again, that's not sustainable, not what you and I are kind of talking about in the long term. I did have somebody come to me. He was trying to raise money for his sustainable. He had a water project. It was brilliant, but he needed $1 million in funding. And he wasn't 2 years, he couldn't get the funding for his NGO. And I asked him how he was asking, and I could see why he wasn't getting the funding. So we did the golden request. And the very next time he got his funding, he went up to the investor and something like, for example, hey, I really appreciate, your portfolio and what you do and what you invest in. For me, I'm working on this thing that does this and that. And I'm super excited about it. I would love to show you the proposal so that you have a chance to see, your opportunity here. Could I send it to you this week? What do you think? What do you think the investor said? Yeah,
I
sure.
said, yes, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then he saw it and he loved it and he's like, I'm in. That was the golden request. So it's natural, it's powerful, it's bold, it's clean. And if somebody's a yes, you're going to find them. You're going to bring that out in them. It makes it easy for people to say, okay.
What gets in the way of meaningful connection and repair in most professional or personal relationships?
Yeah, again, the relationship to fear, one of the ways that we sort of hide behind fear or let the fear get the best of us is pretending. I think that's a big one. Letting our defenses get in the way. If you look at relationship studies, there are things that get in the way how our defenses, criticism, stonewalling, contempt, things that are just not that healthy, aligned attitude where we're curious and we're open and we're being honest with each other. So when you find the formula to kind of strip those things out and decide you're going to come to the table really honest and open, taking care of yourself in the process, really listening to yourself and listening to others, then you start to be able to build a, really good dynamic from there.
Yeah. That's it. So, how does mutual respect reshape outcomes, especially whether in high stakes or emotionally charged moments?
Yeah, learning, remembering your ethics and your values. Like we say it, but you actually have to live it. So always remembering you're on the same team. We're on the same team, even if we disagree and we're fighting for different objectives or whatever the objective might be. In the background, remembering we are on the same team. So with your business partner, with your life partner, with your children, we're on the same team. So you don't want to damage somebody on your team. You can be passionate and you can disagree, but it's just like a sports team, you wouldn't I don't know, like sucker punch someone on the team, right? That's on your team.
Yeah.
Because that's going to break down your team. You just wouldn't do that. So you got to keep the same. You've got to remember we're not against each other. So if you go into are you going into a relationship to be right and to kind of feed your demons, so to speak, your negativity, and to have someone to prove, to fight against and prove things to yourself? Or are you there to actually build an aligned relationship? Maybe even a masterful relationship, or what I call a mountaintop relationship. When you decide to build, or that unicorn company, if you decide to build that, alignment is everything. Somebody I coach sold his company to Google for $20 million, and alignment is everything. You got to stay on the same team with you. That doesn't mean agreeing all the time. You're free to speak what you see differently in your point of view. And often the truth is somewhere in the middle of those two perspectives. That's usually the case. And so people grow together, and that's part of the teamwork.
There is a lot of evidence that shows. Thought leader once told me sometimes when teams are arguing or discussing whether to choose between A and B, the answer is actually a C or a D.
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, that's good. So,
Exactly.
how do you define legacy level leadership, and what inner work is required to truly embody it?
So legacy, well, I like to say that everyone leaves a legacy. Everyone's leaving some sort of impact, some legacy in the world. Grandparents, your parents, everybody leaves a legacy in some way, an impact in their families, in their communities, or whatever. So it's not just for generational wealth or people who build huge companies or, global initiatives. Everyone's an impactor, especially parents and teachers, and everyone leaves a legacy. But I did end up working in this world of generational wealth that's been handed down and built not just through one lifetime, but several lifetimes, and also companies that have been built. Now you can scale things very quickly, into kind of bigger things very quickly. And I'm finding that people really want integrity. And especially the ones taking over generational wealth, they want to be more integral, maybe, than their great grandfathers were, in how they built the company. So there's a lot of high integrity ethics that are wanting to be built and acknowledged, and when they take that on. So it's really how to show up impeccable, as we say, with your words and your actions, and to really care and to show that you care and invite other people to care and care together, and not turn away from the important issues or the elephants in the room. And I just go straight to them. We just go straight to, whatever the elephant is in the room, and I'll put it straight on the table, and we're going to face it now because we're courageous people who decide to look at what is hard to look at. And then they realize that it's not that hard, actually. Sometimes it can feel like it, but not for long. It's actually harder to not look at things. Eventually that will come back and bite you, right?
Yeah, that's good. Interestingly, I've been thinking about authenticity, being authentic a lot
Yeah.
in the last few weeks.
Okay.
And perhaps you or the audience will forgive me if I interchange or use authentic as the integrity. And I've looked in leaders on world stage, I won't mention names, but if you look around the world, there's been a few leaders people perceive them to be authentic. And even though they may have come out to be the elected ones, or they have come out to be what people may perceive not to be good, but because a lot of people will say, I can relate to them. They are authentic. And the reason for sharing that is people can actually
Mm.
sense authenticity, integrity, and it's just to highlight how important leaders or in relationships people have to show that. So I'm curious to know, if you want to add anything,
Sure.
or we can explore other areas as well on the integrity.
Yeah, and authenticity, again, healthy or unhealthy, because you could be authentic to your very toxic nature, right? You could be authentic to that. You could be aligned with that. It doesn't mean it's going to be healthy if you're authentic. What are you authentic to or with inside of you? Yeah. So integrity, and integral to what? You could be integral to all kinds of things. So this is where we really have to dig deep and say, what do I want to be integral to, right? What do I want to be? What kind of authenticity do I want to show up with? And I think that's a deeply personal journey for everyone to really touch to the heart of what is important to them, and do they have the courage to live by it and show up for it?
Yeah, that's good. So, as your final thought, Amara, what is your final thought for the audience who are listening, whether in their personal relationships or in their professional relationships or journey or work or business, whichever area. Can you leave your final thought to the audience, please?
Yeah, I like to, I have a lot of principles and things that I teach, but I really like people to be self-empowered. So I'll leave with four things you can ask yourself if you find yourself in a difficult situation in any area of your life. And it's a bigger topic, but it's based on the four pillars of success. And put it succinctly, just ask yourself, what do I need to acknowledge right now? And you can do that by saying what I need to remember is, because often remembrance is a good kind of acknowledgement. So what I need to remember is, and then you answer that for yourself. What do I need to say no to? What's the boundary, the brakes that I need to step on right now? So what I need to stop tolerating is, or what I need to say no to is, and then on the gas side, what do I need to allow more of in my life? So, what do I need to say yes to? What do I need to prioritize? And once you get those three, now you're going to feel safe to ask. The last one is, what do I need to stay open to? And so you would just say to yourself, okay, I need to stay open to, and it's something that you don't yet know, but you're curious about. And once you know what you can't do anymore and what you must do, what you need to pay attention to, you're going to have some confidence and some safety in order to feel yourself and being able to stay open.
That's great.
So that's a good way to kind of just crack the code and go straight into some self support.
Huge thank you to Amara for your time and the incredible insights around those purpose driven relationship communication. We've covered a whole lot of ground. If listeners really like your work and would like to know more, where can they find you?
Yeah, easy. Just go to amarasamata.com and you can see some things that I do there. And you can always reach out to me, schedule an appointment with me, and I can talk to you about my work privately or group work that I'm doing as well. Business, professional, or spiritual. I work into all realms together.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Awesome
Yeah, you're welcome.
talking to you. Okay. Yeah.